Good morning, church. I'm at a beautiful location with waterfalls. Now, why I thought this would be an appropriate location for today's message is because within the beauty, there's turbulence all around the base, which is a fitting image for this message. Let me explain. In my devotions this week, I've been starting to read through the Gospel of Luke. And in Luke chapter 2, there's a description in a verse that caught my attention and made me pause. Let me give you some context. Jesus and his family went to Jerusalem as was their custom for the Passover. And after the parents, Mary and Joseph, started to head home, Jesus remained in Jerusalem. And the parents recognized he was gone for 3 days. Well, after they go searching for him for 3 days, we pick up in Luke chapter 2, verse 48, which says, "His parents saw him. He's in the temple. They were astonished. His mother said to him, 'Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you.'" What stood out for you in that verse? The word anxious really stood out for me. You'll see the Greek word at the base of your screen, but the NLT translates that word to mean frantic, or the Message paraphrases that word to mean half out of our minds, or God's word translates it to mean we were worried sick. Meaning Mary, the mother of Jesus, who gave birth to the Son of God, the Prince of Peace, still had deep anxieties in parenting. That's what caught me. The Prince of Peace still had anxious parents. You know, I have my anxieties too. Don't you? It might sound overly ambitious, but I thought I would reflect on issues of anxiety over the next couple of weeks. And so I want us to take a journey together where there's beauty and turbulence experienced together. On the subject of anxiety, the Bible offers us a very familiar truth. In Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25, in the NIV translation, it says, "Anxiety weighs down the heart." Isn't that true? When you're anxious, you have a heavy heart. The same verse in the New King James Version translates it like this: "Anxiety in the heart causes depression." Now, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a pastor, but I've been witnessing plenty of heavy hearts these days and people expressing depression in various ways. It seems timely to me to speak about anxiety. So the sources of anxiety, as you know and I know, can come from many sources. It could be from parenting or finances, maybe some health concerns, employment issues, death, church life, relationships. If we're emotionally and intellectually honest, we know the sources of an anxiety can come from ample sources. So I don't want you to stir up anxiety, but what causes you the most distress these days? What's making you anxious? To begin this journey, I want to put a spotlight on one Bible verse. And maybe, just maybe, it's going to offer us some guidance to help deal with life's anxieties. The verse I want to offer is Psalm chapter 46, verse 10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted in the earth." For those who are familiar with the passage, with this psalm, you know it starts with a claim that we will not fear because God is our refuge and our strength. The psalmist insinuates that mountains can fall and the sea can surge because we are safe in God's loving care. But before the psalmist gets to verse 10, he reminds his audience that it is God who makes wars cease and brings peace in turbulent times. So it's after this comfort and hope that he says in Psalm 46:10 as a climax, Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted in the earth. As a pastoral practitioner, not a psychologist, I perceive 3 antidotes to anxiety in this one verse. The first antidote, be still. Now my boys, who are usually with us in these recordings, are very hard to keep still. That's why our video clips are often quite short. They want to run near cliffs or explore fallen trees over chasms, and when they go that way, we instinctively feel anxious about their safety. But activity isn't limited to children. Many of us are busy with things that seem important to us, but they can still be a catalyst to anxiety. For instance, we might put our neck out for a job promotion, but the workload makes us anxious. We may have a dream and a desire to have children, but our child ends up with mental health or physical disabilities that cause us to be anxious. We want to go to church perhaps, but we aren't sure it's safe because of COVID-19. Anxiety at every turn. Good things, but they cause us anxiety. God, through the psalmist, says, be still. Don't you long for stillness? It refreshes the soul. As Psalm 23 verses 2-3 says, God leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Breathe deep. Relax. Be still. Second antidote, know that I am God. When we are still, our minds can still run to anxious thoughts. So in order to make every thought captive to Christ in 2 Corinthians 10:5, our minds need a focus. Consider this. When I was younger, I asked God for a wife, and God showed me Melanie. I thought about her all the time. Thinking of her was quite intoxicating. I felt in love. And the thought of her as my potential wife captivated my heart, my soul, and my mind. If you've ever been in love, you know what I'm talking about. Well, the same thing is true for God. If you are in love with God, it captivates your mind. If you take time to reflect on God and His love and anticipate what it'll be like to be united with Jesus when you're with Him, then the anxieties become replaced by joy-induced love that's quite intoxicating. Consider God's creation. See the wonder of what He has created for you and for me, and realize He loves you. Psalm 46, verse 8-10 in the Message translation says it like this. See the marvels of God. He plants flowers and trees all over the earth. Step out of the traffic. Take a long, loving look at me, your high God. I will, Lord. The third and last antidote, I will be exalted. Exalting God is another way to say worship. I grew up with anxieties, being a diabetic, with intense stuttering till I was 18, and we had our own family struggles growing up too. But in the morning in my home, you could almost always hear the piano playing in the morning with worship songs that exalted God. My mom chose to worship when she could have worried. My mother was fulfilling Psalm 34, verse 2 for me, which says, I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. When people are afflicted with anxieties, you and I can be like healing medicine to them. You can be a healing balm to their soul. How? By exalting God in meaningful worship. As humans, we spend a great amount of energy on our worries, but God calls believers to use our best energy to be still, to reflect, and to exalt God. If you have worries in your life, then remember this critical verse in Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted.